we're going to do a threefer on this one. This is a trilogy. And we are looking at... Okay, yeah, good. We are looking at the Hobbit Trilogy. We got the Hobbit, The Unexpected Journey, Hobbit, Desolation of Smaug, and the Hobbit Battle of the Five Armies. They essentially took one chapter out of the book and made it into a whole movie. It's pretty crazy. Well, 2 or 3 chapters. These movies were made for 3D from the ground up. These movies were shot in 3D. And unfortunately, a lot of the tricks that they used... Well, I think they could have found a way to make it work. They just didn't have a lot of time because they had to pretty much scrap all the pre-production. That's a whole can of worms I won't get into right now. But these movies were shot in 3D. They were designed from the ground up in 3D. Literally the conceptual artist drew pictures in 3D. That is how full on they were about filming this in 3D. And it's okay. I mean, it's really cool to see this stuff filmed in 3D, but the 3D isn't pushed as deep as I think it could have been. It's been a while since I've seen these. Maybe I'll change my mind on another watching. But I remember seeing it like, oh, I'm glad it's filmed in 3D, but I don't feel like it was pushed as much as you could have, especially for somebody that was like really champion. Peter Jackson was like full on boner for 3D for these movies, and he didn't really push it as much as he could have. Maybe he was trying to do like a more artsy and subdued 3D deal, but I think he could have done better. I don't have the extended editions. I would like to get the extended editions of these, but they are very expensive. In fact, I picked these up used. I picked all 3 of these up at the same time for the same price it would have cost to buy one of these new. That is how expensive these were right out of the gate. But, I mean, if you're going to get the Hobbit Trilogy, you might as well get the 3D versions. It's just not as good as I think it could have been. This is one that I haven't been able to watch all the way through. And it might have just been because the time that I had gotten it, I was in a much more stressful time in my life when I had gotten this movie. And every time I tried to watch it, it started making me feel sick. It could have just been the time of my life and I was just stressed out, and that's why I felt like that. But I've heard really good things about House of Wax. People say this is one of the best 3D movies ever made. The few minutes of movie I've seen of this, I was really impressed. I liked what I saw. I might attempt to rewatch this again, but this is good. This is of 1950s, natively filmed in 3D. That was the only way to do it at the time. And I heard it's just a great movie in general. And from the 3D I saw when I did watch it, I thought it was great. This is a top 5 right here. This is top 5 Hugo, and this looks like it got ported. It's just limited 3D edition, but you can find this movie anywhere. Looks like it also got it. I ordered this online, I think. It looks like it got sent from overseas because it's like a French version. Anyway, this is based off a book, one of the best books I've ever read, The Invention of Hugo Cabret, which I highly recommend. It is a book that I picked up and I could not put down until I finished reading it. It was so good. This movie is a faithful adaptation to that. It's not a one-to-one, but this is a Martin Scorsese film. This is the first ever kids film and only kids film he's done. And this is the first and only 3D movie he's done. And that is a crying shame because this is one of the best 3D movies I have ever seen. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure he had a stereographer on set as well. But he understands the 3D in a way that I have rarely ever seen. He just knocked it out of the park. This is an absolute, you really got to see this in 3D. I hate the fact that I missed this in theaters despite loving the book so much. But I'm glad that I got it in 3D at a home release. This movie itself is fantastic. It is a movie about the love of movies. And it's just great. It's a lot of homages. It's about Charles. I won't tell you what it's about. This is another mystery story. You're going to have to figure out what happens when you see the movie. But it is a movie about movies, and I was surprised to find out that the hidden director guy that's in this movie that I won't say his name actually directed a few 3D movies of his own back in the day. I was like, dang, dude, it's pretty crazy. This is top two worst 3D movies ever that I've seen. Haven't seen Wrath or Clash of the Titans, whichever one of those was like the really bad post conversion they did like a week before the movie came out, or a month. iRobot. Now, I believe this movie was post converted by a computer, which is kind of ironic because it's about robots. I'm not 100% sure, but I think they had like some program that they used that figured out where things are in 3D depth by the camera movements. That could be wrong, like I said, but I didn't already own this movie. I got this at a movie stop back when those existed. I picked it up because I didn't have iRobot. I do decently like this movie, but I wasn't impressed with the 3D. If you don't get this in 3D, you're not going to be missing out. I actually almost sold this movie because I was like, this 3D's dog shit, but you're not going to miss out. If you have the 2D version, don't even bother. They did like a whole big, they had this huge thing when they released it in 3D too, and the 3D just ended up being really not that great. Really bad post-conversion. Now, this is one that I meant to pick up the other movies in this series because there's 3 of them that are in 3D, 3 of them that aren't. But this is Ice Age Continental Drift. I meant to get Ice Age 3 in 3D, and then of course there's Ice Age 5, I believe. Wait. No, there's 5 movies, sorry. There's so many Ice Age movies. They never stop. They just pop out of thin air. I like this more than Ice Age 3, and I think the 3D is pretty damn good in this one as well. It's also a little bit of a musical, even though it's like getting like really out of hand at this point this series. I started watching Collision Course and I just got bored, man. I couldn't sit through it, but this is a pretty interesting movie. It's got pirates, got lots of funny characters. You got Sid's grandmother is really funny in this movie. It's just genuinely nice, but it's not one that'd be like, oh, you gotta run out and get it right now. But it is a good 3D. Okay, I'm gonna do these movies as a twofer. Just keep time down, and I'm gonna have to stop recording pretty soon to charge the batteries and continue on. We are now just getting to the bottom of this stack here. Probably see that at the edge of the frame. I'll have to move that. But anyway, have some IMAX documentaries. There's a few other ones I want to get. I want to get Hubble in IMAX 3D. I did see Hubble in a proper IMAX 3D theater, and it blew me away. I thought it was absolutely one of the most beautiful documentaries I've ever seen. And 3D just enhances it more. But I got these IMAX fish movies, and one of them is narrated by Johnny Depp and Kate Winslet, and Kate Winslet knows all about the ocean, and we'll get to that in a little bit later. You guys already know where that's going. And this was narrated by Leonardo DiCaprio, I believe. This one's Kate Winslet, Johnny Depp, one Leonardo DiCaprio. Really good 3D. IMAX documentaries in 3D are usually always fantastic, especially when you have underwater stuff and you're able to get this fish and swing up right to the screen. One of these has, I think it might be this one, has one of the best pop-outs I've ever seen, ever. There's actually one documentary that I saw that has the best 3D ever. It's called Mysteries of the Unseen World, and I want to get that in 3D Blu-ray. I saw that in IMAX 3. I'm getting off topic. I don't have that movie. I'm not going to talk about it, but it's really good in 3D. Anyway, best 3D pop-out. This is, I think this might have been a demo that they showed at Best Buy when 3D TVs were really big. And I remember seeing a fish literally swim right out of the screen. Like, I was blown away by how freaking fantastic it was. I was like, oh my god, this 3D technology is incredible. It really feels like the fish is right there in front of my face. I love it. Movies are rarely able to get that to work properly. There's like a lot of stuff where like 3D comes out, but it doesn't. It feels more like this. It feels more like the screen itself is like has like a weird like it's a sheet of paper or like a piece of. It's hard to explain. The 3D doesn't really work that good. It doesn't. Like you can tell like it's trying to come out of the screen, but like it's kind of hard for it to like really have that effect. But but when they do it right, and it feels like the thing is like an inch or two from your face. And there's a few movies that I can think of, even some movies that aren't documentaries. It really works, and I can only imagine how mind blowing that shot must have been in IMAX. Like it must have been terrifying. But they're good documentaries. Fish documentaries are always good in 3D. And we're gonna get to the We're in the last on this list, and I think I'm gonna pause it and let the cameras recharge, because they're down to like their last. Well, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. We'll keep going. But anyway, In the Heart of the Sea. I actually just watched this. This is the most recent movie that I watched. I watched this the other night, and this movie is based off of the story that Moby Dick is based off of. And after watching it, I'm like, gee, this really reminds me of Life of Pi. It's almost like the same exact concept, but this movie is really good in 3D. There's a lot of stuff coming out of the screen, a lot of depth, a lot of layers. The ropes and the tackle and the boat and the masts and everything, the way that the movie is set up and framed, really good 3D. I was really enthralled by it. It's a pretty interesting story. It can be pretty brutal sometimes, but this is worth getting in 3D, I think. If you're even interested mildly in this story and in this movie, if you have a 3D TV, I would recommend getting the 3D because it makes it even more interesting. And there is a scene in here, freaking Chris Hemsworth and Tom Holland in the same movie together. And Tom Holland ends up growing up to be the narrator of this film. So it's pretty freaking crazy that both of them are in this movie. And this was while the MCU was going on. Tom Holland wasn't Spider-Man yet, but I believe that was like his next movie role was Spider-Man after this. And of course, Chris Hemsworth had already been Thor a few times before. But yeah, good movie, good 3D movie. Really interesting. If you're interested in this movie, even mildly, I would recommend checking it out and seeing the 3D version. This is a really big, fat stacks of 3D Blu-rays. I wish it was fat stacks of cash, but sadly not. Well, it essentially is. This whole collection is probably well worth over a few $1,000s. Let me make sure I'm going where. Okay. So we're getting into the J's now. We got some J's here. We're getting into the third stack out of 6. But this is Jack the Giant Slayer in 3D. Now, I think this movie was shot in 3D, and I can't really remember if it was post-converted. It's a great post-conversion job. This has Ewan McGregor in it. So, I mean, that's worth price of admission alone. But 3D is also fantastic, which helps out a lot. This is a fun retelling of the Jack and the Beanstalk story. It's genuinely fun. It makes you feel good. It's a great action film. Legendary usually this is made by Legendary. They usually make all the weird nerdy fantasy shit that I like. And we'll get to them later in this stack. This is going to be towards the end. But Jack the Giant Slayer, worth getting. This is a good 3D movie. It's a good movie in general. Like I said, Ewan McGregor, worth price of admission alone. Bada bing, bada boom, get it. If you don't got it, get it. That's all I gotta say about that. Now, this is top 10. And it's not really... It uses 3D really gimmicky, and you could say that it's just nostalgia. But, I mean, you can't hate this movie when you see it. It's Journey to the Center of the Earth 3D. I know for a fact this one was filmed in 3D. This was one of the first major releases for 3D when that was getting big. I believe this came out in 08 or 09. I can't really remember. But it's got Brendan Fraser. It's based off the Jules Verne book, or it uses it as like a template. In this world, the Jules Verne book was written, but the Center of the Earth was also real. The book was based off a real story. This is a lot of pop out, a lot of deep stuff, a beautiful score. The soundtrack for this movie, I love it. It is exciting, it's beautiful, it's emotional. There's one scene in this movie, I listen to the soundtrack and it gets me every time. It's really sad. This movie is genuinely a fantastic adventure film. and a must-have if you've got a 3D movie collection and if you enjoy 3D movies. This is absolute must-have, top 10, possibly top 5 material here. I know I'm getting really close, I'm sorry. Okay, and they followed that up a few years later with everyone's favorite Stone, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in Forest Jungle movie, which he pretty much stars in. Like, there's like someone took 4 screen caps from 4 different movies where The Rock is in a jungle, and they were like, these are from 4 different films. 2 of them are from Jumanji, one of them's from this, and another one I can't remember what it was. But Journey to the Mysterious Island. The 3D in this movie is still fantastic. I believe this movie was also shot in 3D. This is a fun adventure film. You got Josh Peta, guy from Hunger Games. I know, I'm sorry, I should know his name. Josh Hutcherson is in this movie, and it's good. It's got some heart to it. And they also put in a lot of different Jules Verne's things in here. They set up for a 3rd movie that hasn't happened yet. I'm really hoping for that. And I hope when they do come and make it, that one's filmed in 3D too, and they give as much care. This is a great 3D movie. I would personally recommend the first movie over this one, but this is also fantastic as well. You won't be disappointed. Not as much pop out in this film, but it is still very well done. Very fun action film. Great. It's a great two. If you want to sit down for a nice double feature, these 2 movies are the way to go. If you're like, I want to see a movie where I can just turn my brain. I should have done a twofer for those just now. I'm sorry. Speaking of Jumanji. Bam! Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle. This is one of the more recent ones I got. My wonderful girlfriend got this for me for my birthday. And it's a good thing because that same exact week, Jumanji 2 came out. Now, they announced the Jumanji, well, actually, this is part of the same series. You can say it's a soft reboot. A little bit after Robin Williams had passed away, and I thought that was in really poor taste. I'm like, how can you guys do this? It's going to be a shit-ass movie. You can't replace that original film. That original film still holds up really well to this day. You're just capitalizing on his death. And they were like, no, it's not like that. It's just a coincidence. And I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. You could have, held off on it a little bit longer. But I thought it was going to be awful. And then it came out. People were like, oh, that's actually pretty damn good. It's pretty damn funny. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Fucking, they can suck a D. They capitalize on Robin Williams' death. And nothing will be better than the original. But I saw this movie. And I'm glad that I did. Because it is really, really good. This is much better than I thought it was going to be. The 3D is also really fun. And also Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in another 3D jungle movie. I still prefer the original, but this is also really fantastic. Also, on a side note, we did end up seeing the sequel, and 3D was okay. There were some fun 3D moments. I don't think the movie was as good as this one, but they are setting up for a 3rd movie in this new Jumanji trilogy, and if they do what I think they're going to do, it is going to easily be the best one. One of my gripes with these is that, the thing that made the original Jumanji so exciting is that all this stuff was happening in suburbia. Like, you were seeing just this suburban neighborhood and town get destroyed by all this jungle stuff, and that's really exciting to watch. But if you see jungle stuff happen in a jungle, it's like, oh, okay. But I think that's what they're going to do for the 3rd movie, and if they do that, it's going to be badass. Now, this is a movie that everyone says the 3D is super fantastic, and I'm not super impressed by. I picked this up because I kept hearing it was so good. I remember seeing the 3D IMAX trailers, and I wasn't super impressed, but I'm like, maybe if I see the whole movie, I'll change my mind, and then I didn't. And that is The Jungle Book 3D. I don't particularly like this remake. I don't think it's very well done. I think they completely missed the point of what the original story was. I will say that this feels more... It feels like a mix between readapting the original story and remaking the movie, the animated film, which they actually already have done a live-action remake of this movie in the 90s. But the CG effects are good. The the kid actor they got, like, oh my god, dude, that kid acted his ass off. Like, he was essentially acting to nothing the entire time. He was on a green screen set, and he did a fantastic job. That's almost worth the price of admission alone. 3D's not super amazing. John Favreau did this movie. They might have filmed this in 3D, or it might have been a post conversion. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's one of the best 3D movies ever." Not really, not in my opinion. They also did, on another note, they did. I saw The Lion King in IMAX 3D. I thought the IMAX aspect ratio was cool. They did film that movie in 3D since it was all animated anyway. Well, it's not a live action remake; it's a reanimated remake. And I wasn't really impressed with the 3D there either. I felt like they could have done a lot more. This is one of the first 3D Blu-rays I got, and of course I'm happy that I did. And I'm glad that I saw that. I was able to see this in the re-release in theaters. We're talking about Jurassic Park 3D. Bada bing, bada boom. I believe the story goes that they were in, Steven Spielberg was inspired to do this 3D re-release after seeing the Titanic post-conversion, which we will get to. And I will admit this is one of the best post-conversions I've ever seen. If you didn't know this wasn't filmed in 3D, you would think that this was filmed in 3D. They really went through every frame and they meticulously pulled everything out. Like Steven Spielberg was overseeing this project, and he says stuff like, "Oh, I always, envisioned this movie in 3D in a way," and I'm like, "Yeah, okay, you're just trying to sell it." But they really went through frame by frame, and they understood. Like, they got Jurassic Park scholars on this movie to make sure that everything was at the right depth, that they were able to pull as much 3D depth out of this as possible. They even added some extra little bits and pieces here and there to add to the 3D effect to make it more exciting. This is a must-have. I don't really have it in my top 10, but that's because there's so many good 3D movies, and like I said, this is a re-release. But if you don't have this movie in 3D, I know you probably have. This movie has come out on every format known to man. It even has a Laserdisc version, but gotta get it one more time for that 3D version. It really is worth it, and it really does add a lot to the movie. It's a very exciting post-conversion. And I'm glad that I was able to see it in theaters, because, that's a novelty in and of itself. And then they did the soft reboot. So I enjoy this movie. I don't think it's nearly as good as the original. I think there's a few issues with this movie. It feels like they had all the ingredients from the original film, but they didn't mix them together quite right. They didn't get the recipe quite right. But it is cool to see what a Jurassic Park would be if they actually completed the park and it all came together. And they had some weird motion blurring going on these rafters, but I thought this movie was pretty great. This movie is brutal. People die. I mean, I know they died in the original Jurassic Park, but like the people that died in the original Jurassic Park were kind of assholes. Just normal, regular people on vacation. Innocent people die in this movie. It's pretty horrific. The 3D is not really that super amazing. It's been a while since I saw this in 3D. I saw this in IMAX 3D. I liked it there. But 3D is not nearly as good as Jurassic Park. If you got to choose, pick this one up. I mean, it's the better movie, better 3D, and it's kind of a shame that this movie from 1993 is still giving newer movies a run for their money, even with the post-conversion. And of course, this was post-converted, but the original Jurassic Park, nothing can change that. This is a 2D movie, and one of the best movies that I have. This is one that I extremely highly recommend. Most people have seen it. Sequel wasn't that great. Hopefully the prequel will be great. We're talking about Kingsman: The Secret Service. This movie is wild. I thought this movie was like a different movie. I wasn't even going to see this movie in theaters, but I was with someone at the time. They really wanted to see this movie, and I was like, okay. And I saw it, and I'm glad that I did, because this was phenomenal. You really gotta see this movie. I mean, most people, like I said, most people have. You got Samuel L. Jackson in it, dude. He does a fantastic job. This is a fantastic parody of James Bond spy type movies, and it ends up being a great movie in and of itself. It's also got a kick-ass soundtrack, and super highly recommend. The sequel, not so much. This would have been a cool movie in 3D. We're gonna do a 3 for here. This is another trilogy that's gonna continue to make more films in it. Keeping my eye on the camera battery. We're talking about Kung Fu Panda Reno. Now, originally I believe I had only had the first, or the Kung Fu Panda 3, and that's the only one that I was able to see in 3D in theaters. I believe 2 came out in 3D in theaters, and obviously this movie came out before all that was a thing. I think this came out in 06 or 08. Can't really remember. It's probably on the back. I don't know. But point is, these movies in 3D are fantastic. Actually, DreamWorks has done a few re-releases of their 3D or of their 2D movies in 3D. I believe they also did Shrek, which I do have Shrek, but I think the 3D in this movie was done much better than Shrek was. The first Shrek movie in 3D is kind of disappointing, but I mean it's still great. Anyway, I'll get to that. These are fantastic 3D films. Like, damn, especially Kung Fu Panda 3. Holy crap, dude! You really got to see these movies in 3D to enjoy them. Well, I mean, they're fantastic movies, even if you don't see them in 3D. But, like, you really get much more out of them with that extra depth. And it is very fun and exciting. I'm glad I picked them all up. And I'm really looking forward to the rest of these movies and seeing the rest of them in 3D. Jeffrey Katzenberg said that Poe's story has 6 chapters. Of course, we're on chapter 3 now. And these movies have really grown on me over the years. You know, I really appreciate them. I won't do a twofer on this one. There's 4 of these in the series. I only have 2, but I do plan on picking up the other 2. It's just the other 2 are out of stock right now. We got Lego Batman. This is one of the best Batmans I've ever seen. There are other really good Batman movies, and this is one of them, and that I super highly recommend. The 3D in this movie I actually do prefer over the original Lego movie. They really went all out. And this is just a great movie in general. Great soundtrack, fun stuff. They make fun of themselves. They make fun of DC stuff. And this was around the time when Suicide Squad came out and Batman vs. Superman had just come out. And this was a breath of fresh air. I think a lot of DC fans, a lot of movie fans, reviewers really needed this breath of fresh air. And I think it's great. I think it's almost as good as the original Lego movie. And it's just nice. This is a good one to see in 3D. Highly recommend that one. I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit once these cameras run out of battery. I'm going to take a break, get some ice cream. Sounds pretty good. Now this one is one of the more expensive ones. This might have been like $50. I don't know. But it's because it came with a bunch of tchotchkes I didn't give a shit about. Of course, I'm talking about the Lego movie. I love this movie. Fantastic movie. I saw this in theaters in 3D. These movies, especially this one, lends itself really well to the 3D format because they wanted the animation to look like you were actually looking at plastic figures come to life, and the 3D does add to that effect. It's a storytelling thing, you know. It helps you feel like you're looking at these models. It really does add a lot. Like I said, this is a fantastic movie in and of itself. It's all about creativity and imagination. And I know that's really generic for kids' movies, but it's good. It's heartfelt. Got a great soundtrack. And if you don't end up picking this movie up in 3D, you aren't missing too much. But if you don't have it and you have a 3D TV, I would recommend picking it up in 3D.